My wife wouldn't let me touch her pregnant belly. She called me a sperm donor in front of her mom. At our baby shower, she humiliated me. Then she revealed a secret that broke me. I'm James Carter, a 34-year-old graphic designer living in Seattle, Washington. My life revolves around my wife, Emily, and my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, from a previous relationship. Emily and I have been married for 3 years, and we were over the moon when we found out she was pregnant with our first child together. I imagined us sharing every moment, ultrasounds, picking out baby names, feeling the kicks. But as soon as Emily's pregnancy test showed positive, something shifted. She became distant, cold, almost like a stranger. At first, I thought it was just hormones. Pregnancy can be a roller coaster, right? But weeks passed, and Emily started shutting me out. She wouldn't let me touch her bump, not even a gentle hand to feel our baby move. When I'd asked to go to her ultrasound appointments, she'd brush me off, saying, "It's just routine, James. You don't need to be there." Her words stung, like I wasn't part of this. I'd come home from work, eager to talk about our baby, but she'd change the subject or leave the room. It felt like I was losing her, and I didn't know why. I tried to be the supportive husband. I'd cook her favorite meals, lasagna with extra cheese, her go-to comfort food. I'd leave little notes on the fridge saying how excited I was to meet our baby, but Emily barely acknowledged them. Once, I caught her pulling her sweater down to hide her bump when I walked into the living room. My heart sank. Was she ashamed? Did she not want me to be part of this? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Sophie would ask, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy let you feel the baby?" I didn't have an answer. I just hugged her, hiding my own confusion. I started doubting myself. Was I doing something wrong? I'd always been open about Sophie, and Emily had embraced her from the start. She'd take Sophie to the park, read her bedtime stories, even braid her hair for school. But now, every time I mentioned the baby, Emily's face would tighten. She'd make snide comments like, "I bet you did this with your ex, didn't you?" It was like she was building a wall between us, and I was stuck on the outside, banging on it, desperate to get in. One night, I tried to talk to her. We were in our cozy kitchen, the one we'd painted together in that soft blue she loved. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Emily, what's going on? I want to be here for you, for our baby." She looked at me, her eyes cold, and said, "James, I don't need you hovering. I'm fine." Her voice was sharp, cutting through me. I stood there, frozen, as she walked away. My chest ached, like someone had punched me. I loved her so much, but I felt like I was losing my place in our family. Why was she pushing me away? What wasn't she telling me? I didn't know it then, but this was just the start of a storm that would shake everything I thought I knew about us. Emily's coldness grew worse, like a Seattle winter that just wouldn't let up. I kept trying to bridge the gap, but every step I took seemed to push her further away. It wasn't just the small rejections anymore, like pulling her sweater down to hide her bump or dodging my questions about the baby. It was bigger, more public, more painful. At our baby shower, thrown by her sister at a community center in Capitol Hill, I thought we'd finally share a moment of joy. Friends and family filled the room, balloons bobbing, gifts stacked high. I was smiling, picturing our future. Then Emily stood up, clinking her glass. My stomach tightened. Something felt off. "This isn't James's first kid," she announced, her voice sharp, slicing through the chatter. "So don't be surprised if I keep my distance from him. It's complicated, okay?" The room went silent. My face burned. People stared, some whispering, others looking away. Sophie, playing with a balloon, looked up, confused. I wanted to sink into the floor. Why would she humiliate me like that? I mumbled an excuse about checking the food and slipped out to the parking lot, my hands shaking. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. What was she trying to prove? Back home, it didn't get better. Emily's comments turned vicious. If I mentioned her bump, she'd snap, "I bet your ex's was bigger, wasn't it?" Once, in front of her mom at our house, she called me the sperm donor. My jaw dropped. Her mom looked uncomfortable, but didn't say a word. I felt like an outsider in my own home. Emily started wearing these oversized flannel shirts, even in the summer heat, just to hide her pregnancy from me. If I walked into a room, she'd tug her shirt down, like I wasn't allowed to see her. It was a knife to my chest every time. I tried to stay patient. I thought, maybe she's scared, maybe it's stress. So I doubled down on being the good husband. I'd seen her Pinterest board, filled with nursery ideas, soft grays, woodland animals, a crib with a mobile. One day, between client meetings, I drove to a baby store in Bellevue and spent $200 on the exact items she'd pinned: a plush fox, a tiny knit blanket, a mobile with little stars. I came home with those, plus flowers and her favorite Thai takeout from a spot in Fremont. "Emily, look, I got stuff for the nursery," I said, grinning. She glanced at the bags, her face blank. "That's nice, James," she said, then walked away. The next day, I came home to find the baby stuff gone. "I returned it," she said, not looking at me. "Sophie needs things more. She'll feel left out otherwise." My heart broke. Sophie was my world, but this was our baby too. Why was she punishing me? I tried talking to her again, one night in our living room. The TV was off, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. "Emily, I'm trying so hard here. I love you. I love our baby. Why won't you let me in?" She crossed her arms, her eyes hard. "You've done this before, James. You don't need to pretend it's special." I felt like I'd been slapped. "It is special," I said, my voice cracking. "This is us, our family." She shook her head and left the room, her shoulders stiff. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. I didn't understand understand. Was she jealous of Sophie, of my past? I wasn't perfect, but I'd never given her a reason to doubt my love. The distance between us was a chasm now, and I didn't know how to cross it. Something had to give, but I had no idea how bad it was about to get. The tension in our house was suffocating, like a Seattle fog that wouldn't lift. Emily's coldness had turned into a wall I couldn't break through, and I was unraveling. I'd always prided myself on being patient, but her rejection of me as a father to our unborn child was too much. It felt like she was erasing me from our family, and I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, after another day of her dodging my attempts to connect, I snapped. It was in our kitchen, the same one where we used to dance to old jazz records. Now, it felt like a battlefield. I'd come home early from work, hoping to surprise Emily with a prenatal massage certificate from a spa in Queen Anne. I found her in the living room, wearing one of those baggy shirts, scrolling on her phone. "Emily, I got you something," I said, holding out the certificate. She barely looked up. "Thanks, but I don't need it. Sophie's been asking for new art supplies." That was it, the final straw. My chest tightened, and before I could stop myself, words poured out. "Having this child with you was the worst mistake of my life," I yelled, my voice shaking. "At least my ex let me be a father to Sophie. You won't even let me touch our baby." Emily's eyes widened, but I kept going, the hurt spilling over. "I don't even care about this kid anymore because you've made it impossible to bond. I hope you're as miserable as you've made me." I didn't mean it. I loved our baby, but I wanted her to feel the pain she'd put me through. She stood up, her face pale. "You don't care about our baby? Fine, I'll die before you take my child from me." Her voice was low, venomous. I froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" I demanded. "Is this even my kid?" I knew she wasn't cheating. Emily wasn't like that, but I was so angry I wanted to hurt her back. She grabbed her phone and threw it at me, hard. It hit the couch and bounced off. "Go through it. Check everything. I'll do a paternity test, whatever you want," she screamed. Her hands were shaking, tears streaming down her face. I'd never seen her like this. My stomach churned. What had we become? I couldn't stay. I grabbed my keys and left, driving to a hotel in Tacoma. The room was sterile, the kind of place that smelled like bleach and regret. I sat on the bed, my head in my hands, replaying the fight. I'd gone too far, but so had she. I didn't know how to fix this, but I couldn't lose my family. Desperate, I called Emily's dad, Robert, who lived in Bellevue. He and Emily were close, and I trusted his advice. He'd been married to Emily's mom for decades, their home filled with photos of a life built together. I didn't tell him everything, just that we were fighting, and I was at a hotel. "James," he said, his voice steady, "you're already living apart from your pregnant wife. You're talking about custody battles. What do you have to lose by laying it all out? Be a man, go home, and make her talk." His words hit hard. He was right. I was running away when I needed to fight for us. I decided to go back the next day. Robert and his wife offered to take Sophie for the night to buy sparklers for the upcoming 4th of July at a store in Kirkland. I agreed, grateful for the chance to face Emily alone. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing. I loved Emily. I loved our baby, but her behavior was tearing me apart. Was she jealous of Sophie, resentful of my past, or was there something deeper, something she wasn't telling me? I didn't know, but I couldn't keep living like this. I had to go home, face her, and demand the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I had no idea that what she'd reveal would turn everything upside down. The next morning, I drove back to our Seattle home, my heart pounding like a drum. I stopped at a flower shop in Fremont, picking up a bouquet of Emily's favorite sunflowers, their bright petals a stark contrast to the dread in my chest. I also grabbed ingredients for her favorite dinner, grilled salmon with lemon herb sauce. I wasn't sure if this would work, but I had to try. Robert's words echoed in my head. "What do you have to lose?" I pulled into our driveway, took a deep breath, and walked inside. Emily was in the living room, curled up on the couch, her eyes red from crying. She looked up, startled. "James, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharp but shaky. "I live here," I said, setting the flowers and grocery bags on the counter. "And we need to talk. Really talk." I sat across from her, my hands clasped tight to stop them from shaking. "I'm sorry for what I said yesterday. I was angry, hurt, but I didn't mean it. I love you. I love our baby, but you're shutting me out, and it's killing me. I need to know what's going on." Emily's face crumpled, and she looked away, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. "Nothing's wrong," she mumbled. "Everything's fine." I shook my head, my voice breaking. "Don't lie to me, Emily. We've been through too much together. I know you're hurting. Tell me why." She was silent for what felt like forever, her shoulders trembling. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared, James. I'm scared this isn't special for you." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean? Of course it's special." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "This is my first baby, but it's not yours. You've done this before with Sophie. I keep thinking, what if this doesn't mean as much to you? What if I'm just the second choice, the backup family?" Her words hit me like a punch. I opened my mouth to protest, but she kept going, her voice raw. "I see you get excited about the baby, wanting to touch my bump, and all I can think about is you doing that with your ex. I feel like I'm competing with her, with Sophie, with a life I wasn't part of." I sat there, stunned, my throat tight. "Emily, you're not competing with anyone. You're my wife, my love. This baby is ours." She wiped her eyes, her voice shaking. "I know that in my head, but my heart doesn't believe it. Early in my pregnancy, I told my friend Sarah I was so excited to have a baby with my soulmate. She laughed and said, said, "Soulmates don't have kids with other people." It crushed me, James. I started wondering if we were even meant to be. I found old photos of your ex on Instagram, pregnant with Sophie, and I couldn't stop comparing myself. Was her bump bigger? Did you love her more? Will our baby ever be as special to you as Sophie is? My heart ached. I hadn't realized how deep her insecurities ran. Emily, I don't think about my ex like that. You're my soulmate. You and this baby are my family now. She shook her head, her voice breaking. I feel like our baby and I are your sloppy seconds. No one dreams of being the second family. I keep worrying you won't bond with this baby because you've already done the newborn thing. I read articles online about dads not connecting with kids until they're older, and it terrifies me. What if our baby doesn't live up to Sophie? What if they don't get along? I even wished you didn't have Sophie, just for a moment, so I wouldn't feel like this. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I hate myself for thinking that. I moved to her side, my own eyes stinging. Emily, I had no idea you were carrying all this. She looked up, her face wet with tears. I didn't want to tell you because it sounds awful. I love Sophie, I do, but sometimes I feel like I'm ruining your bond with her, like I'm coming between you two. When I try to bond with the baby, I feel guilty for taking your attention from her. When you try to bond with the baby, I feel jealous, like I'm not enough. I'm a mess, James. I pulled her into my arms, and we both cried, the weight of her words settling over us. I'd been so caught up in my own pain, I hadn't seen hers. She'd been drowning in fear and shame, and I'd missed it. Now that I knew, I had to find a way to make this right. For her, for our baby, for us. Holding Emily in my arms, her tears soaking my shirt, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because she'd finally opened up, and guilt for not seeing her pain sooner. The Seattle rain tapped against our living room windows, a soft rhythm to our heavy silence. I pulled back, looking into her eyes. Emily, I'm so sorry I didn't realize how much you were hurting. You're not second to anyone. You're my home, my choice, my everything. This baby, it's ours, and I'm just as excited as I was with Sophie, maybe more, because it's with you. She sniffled, her lips trembling. I want to believe you, James. I'm just scared. I knew words alone wouldn't fix this. I had to show her. Let's start over, I said. I want to be part of this pregnancy, every step. Can we try? She hesitated, then nodded, her hand slowly guiding mine to her bump. I felt the curve of her belly, warm and real, and my throat tightened. I love you both so much, I whispered, my voice cracking. She gave a small smile, the first I'd seen in weeks, and we sat there, her hand over mine, feeling our baby shift. It was a start. Over the next few days, I doubled down. I remembered how much Emily loved biking with Sophie at Discovery Park, but her pregnancy had stopped their rides. So, I went to a bike shop in Ballard and bought a pull-behind trailer with a comfy seat and a little fan for her. Now you can come with us, I told her, grinning. Her eyes lit up, and for the first time in months, she looked excited. We took Sophie out that weekend, her pedaling ahead on her sparkly pink bike while I pulled Emily, her laughter mixing with the breeze. Sophie shouted, "Mommy, you're so fast!" And Emily's smile was brighter than the sun breaking through the clouds. It felt like we were a family again, but it wasn't all smooth. Emily still had moments of doubt. One night, as we lay in bed, she whispered, "Do you think our baby will be as special to you as Sophie?" I turned to her, brushing her hair back. "Sophie's special because she's Sophie. This baby will be special because they're ours. I don't compare them, Emily. I love them both, and I love you." She nodded, but I could see the worry lingering. To ease it, I started sharing our firsts, our first date at Pike Place, tossing fish and laughing, our first kiss under the Space Needle, the first time she and Sophie baked cookies and got flour everywhere. "These are ours," I'd say. "No one else gets those." Her eyes would soften, and she'd lean into me, like she was starting to believe it. We started therapy together, at a small office in Fremont. The therapist helped Emily unpack her fears, especially about being second. She also worked with Sophie's therapist to make sure our girl was ready for a sibling. Sophie, bless her, was thrilled. She kept drawing pictures of baby at school, taping them to Emily's mirror. But Emily still struggled with guilt over Sophie. She told me about a day when Sophie tore pages from a book Emily picked for the baby. "I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd think I was pitting her against me," she admitted. I took her hands. "We're a team, Emily. You don't have to hide anything." I talked to Sophie gently, and we worked on her behavior, setting up a reward chart for kindness. Her therapist said she was just adjusting to change, not sensing Emily's struggles, which eased Emily's mind. Slowly, Emily let me in. At a pool party in West Seattle, she let me pick her swimsuit, a big deal after months of baggy clothes. She looked radiant, her bump proud and visible. On the drive home, she grabbed my hand and placed it on her belly. "Feel that," she said, smiling. The baby was hiccuping, a tiny rhythmic jolt I'd never felt before. We laughed, tears in our eyes, sharing a first we'd never forget. I started rubbing her feet, her back, anything to ease her aches, and she'd tease, "You're spoiling me, Carter." I'd grin back. "Good, you deserve it." Those moments, small as they were, rebuilt us. We weren't perfect, but we were fighting for each other, and that was enough for now. Our house in Seattle felt alive again, like the first spring day after a long winter. Emily and I were finding our rhythm, piecing our family back together. The baby's due date was creeping closer, and we were hustling to get the nursery ready in our cozy Capitol Hill home. We painted the walls a soft gray, hung the woodland mobile I'd bought months months ago and set up a crib we'd picked out together at a shop in Ballard. Every time Emily smiled at the tiny onesies we folded, my heart swelled. But I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. Her insecurities still lingered, and I had to keep showing her she was my world. One morning, Emily woke me up, her voice soft but playful. "Baby's craving blueberry pancakes, James." I bolted out of bed, grinning like a kid on Christmas. I whipped up a stack in our kitchen, the smell of butter and syrup filling the air. We sat at our little breakfast nook, sunlight streaming through the window, and she laughed when I got syrup on my chin. "You're a mess," she teased, wiping it off. I caught her hand and kissed it, "only for you." Moments like these felt like a gift after months of distance. I cherished everyone, but Emily's doubts still surfaced. Sometimes, late at night, she'd bring up my ex. Was it like this with her? She'd ask, her voice small. I'd pull her close, steering the conversation to us. "Remember our first trip to Lake Tahoe? You pushed me into the water and we laughed until we couldn't breathe. That's us, Emily. No one else." I'd remind her of Sophie calling her mommy for the first time, or the way we danced at our wedding in a Fremont loft, her dress spinning under the lights. Those memories grounded her, and she'd nod, curling into me, her bump pressed against my side. We kept up with therapy, and it was helping. Emily's therapist worked on her guilt, especially about Sophie. One day, Emily admitted she'd cried when Sophie said she missed biking with her. I'd already fixed that with the bike trailer, but I took it further. I planned family outings to Discovery Park, where Sophie could ride her bike while I pulled Emily, her fan whirring to keep her cool. Sophie would yell, "Faster, Daddy!" and Emily would giggle, her hand resting on her bump. I also took time off work to be home more, playing board games with Sophie or reading to the baby with Emily. Sophie's therapist reassured us she was thriving, excited to be a big sister. Her only complaint? Emily once forgot her candy, and it took 32 whole minutes for the store to deliver. We laughed, relieved it wasn't deeper. As the due date neared, Emily let me in more. One evening, she lifted her shirt and guided my hand to her belly. "Feel that," she said, her eyes bright. The baby kicked, strong and steady, and I choked up. "This is our first kick together," I said, my voice thick. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry I kept you away." I kissed her forehead. "We're here now." I spent hours rubbing her sore back, fetching late-night snacks. Pickles and ice cream at 2 a.m. became my specialty. It was exhausting, but I loved every second. Emily even started joking about her cravings, saying, "Baby's got your taste for weird combos." Looking back, I wish I'd pushed harder for her to open up sooner. I'd let her brush me off for too long, thinking it was just pregnancy stress. But now, we were rebuilding. Emily still needed reassurance, and I was learning to be patient, to listen when she doubted herself. We were getting ready for our baby, but more than that, we were fighting for our family. I knew challenges were coming, sleepless nights, Sophie's adjustment, Emily's fears, but I felt ready. We'd face the worst and come out stronger. As I watched Emily hang a tiny fox plush in the nursery, her smile soft and hopeful, I knew we'd make it together.